Need to act now. I'm joined now by Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana and ranking member on the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. Senator, thank you for being with us and welcome to Chicago.
Hey, thank you, Marty.
Nice to see you. All right, let's talk about the big story of the week before we get to these other important topics, and that is the indictment of former President Trump. You call it concerning. Many would agree, having read the indictment and some of the details that were revealed in that indictment. What is your biggest concern right now? What are you waiting to hear and learn?
Well, you want the judicial process to play out. But if it's true, as apparently captured on tape, that the president knew that he had not declassified them, that he had them in his hand, and that he showed things that were top secret to people who did not have a classification clearance, that's wrong. And that could potentially compromise our nation's defense. Now, we don't know all the details, but that's in the recording of his own voice speaking to reporters about this. So put politics aside. We want our country to be well defended, and we want our secrets to remain secret. And so we have to see whether or not he did compromise those secrets.
The former president says he is not guilty. He will fight the charges being levied against him. He's also thrown out the term, the weaponization of government. What do you feel about that phrasing surrounding this sentence?
Moving first to the court, the judge who is before which he's going is a judge he appointed. And so I think we can count on him having a fair trial. So when you speak of the weaponization, I think he's specifically talking about the FBI. It's unfortunate. The FBI has given ample ammunition for those that feel as if they are not fair, as if they will tilt one way or the other based upon politics. And that's up to the FBI to overcome that. You meet individual FBI agents, they're good. But the organization, there's enough folks who were politicized that the former president has the ability to say that.
If the former president is convicted, should he still run? Should he drop out of the race?
Well, I mean, my gosh, if you're convicted, I don't think by law you can't. But the fact is that I don't think he can win. I'm a Republican. I want a Republican to win. And if you look at the polling, there's enough Republicans with concern about this that I think it would mean that he would not win. So if the goal is for Republicans to win, which I would like that to be our goal, then I would like someone else to be our candidate because I think any other candidate does win.
How has this case and now a second indictment impacted the Republican Party as we go into 2024?
We don't know that. I should ask you that. It's up to the voters. But we can see in swing states in the last cycle that candidates whom President Trump endorsed lost. And it appears that a couple of them at least lost precisely because of that endorsement. So we know among some voters, conservative Republican voters, they feel as if they want to move past former President Trump. I think that will be even more so with these indictments. I'm just speaking objectively. People say, oh my gosh, you're trying to throw something. No, I'm trying to win an election. And parties are about winning an election. And we have to objectively look at the facts. And the facts suggest that President Trump is a drag on the ticket.
And if President Trump is the nominee, does he have your support given what we've learned?
You know, I've previously said that I would support a Republican, but it'll be a different Republican.
Okay, we'll leave that there. The Supreme Court right now, as you just heard Tom Dempsey in Washington, is deciding a very important case, one that you have spoken out recently publicly about the root causes of student debt. And you say that is where we have to start the focus, is understanding why students are taking on so much debt. Tell me about your plan and your great concerns now with what the Supreme Court is deciding with the president's plan.
First, it acknowledges that the president is not forgiving student loan. He's merely transferring the obligation to taxpayers, to those who either pay back their student loans or never took them back. He's also not addressing the root cause. The Committee for Responsible Federal Budget says in 5 years will be just as bad as we are now because President Biden is not addressing the root causes. So what are the root causes? A young 18-year-old has access to hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans and has no clue as to whether or not this is a good value. So among the solutions, one is my College Transparency Act, where the student and their family could go up and they could look online. If I enroll at this university in this curriculum, what is the likelihood that someone that looks like me will graduate? How much will I earn and how much do I have to borrow? If you got a 5% chance of graduating after taking on $200,000 of loans, you go someplace else. because there's some colleges that do a better job of making sure that some students actually graduate.
So what you're saying, and I heard you say this before, and so I'm trying to understand the ratio, that some colleges may not be the best fit for all students.
Yes,
essentially?
correct. There's a university in Georgia, I think it's Georgia Southern, that has a concerted program to help African-American males graduate. And they say they've eliminated the disparity between African-American males and other groups. Now, African-American males have had the hardest time. So if there's a choice between a young man who's going to take on tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and not graduating in one school but graduating in the other, logically he'd go to the one where he's going to graduate. That's just one example.
But does your plan get to the issue of the high cost of education? Why do some colleges cost so much more than others? Is the education better?
Well, in some cases it would be, in other cases not. And in our package, there are those things that go at that higher cost. For example, student loans would not be available if the person wanting to receive the loan is not going to earn more money than she or he would had they not gotten the degree. So, for example, there's a curriculum for film studies which costs $50,000 a year in tuition, but you graduate and you earn $30,000. Now, that's just absurd. You may want to do it, but the federal taxpayer should not be subsidizing you.
What is your message then to students? And I've got one who's on the cusp of beginning a college education. You've got 3 kids who have gone through the process. What do you say to them when they have the difficult decision to take on debt, but they have a dream for their life and it needs college to achieve that dream?
Yeah, what you don't want to be is shackled with debt. So for you to achieve that dream, you've got to be financially situated to achieve it. And if you are shackled with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and worst case scenario, you haven't graduated, then you're living in your parents' basement. But if you make the wise decision as to where to attend, the curriculum in which you're going to study, you're going to graduate and be able to fulfill that dream. We don't want an unscrupulous university shackling them with debt so they never achieve their dream.
Social Security, another important issue, Senator. I want to talk to you about some reform. You say Social Security will be insolvent in 8 to 9 years if no action is taken. And you also say neither President Biden or former President Trump has done anything about Social Security. What do you think needs to happen to hold the current administration and past administrations accountable? And what do you want to see happen now? First,
it's not me saying it's going insolvent, it's the actuaries. 8 to 9 years, boom, the trust fund is busted, empty, and everyone receiving Social will get a 24% cut in their Social Security check. You're not grandfathered in. One day you get $100, next day you get 75. I'm just using that as an example.
Okay.
And so what we need is a leader who's willing to lead. Currently, President Biden, former President Trump are both telling the American people, no harm, nothing to worry about, we don't really need a plan. And because of that, the American people have been kind of lulled into complacency. I've worked with colleagues. We've come up with what we call a big idea. We don't raise taxes on seniors. We don't cut benefits for seniors, but we take care of 75% of the problem. We also do other things that are positive for work incentives, for decreasing poverty among the elderly. We need a leader or someone who wants to be our nation's leader to honestly confront the problem, tell the American people what she or he is going to do, and then work to do it.
And because you've seen a lack of action, you said that should disqualify both President Biden and the former president from holding office. Do you still stand by that?
I do. If the program goes insolvent, as it's scheduled to do, poverty among the elderly will double. There will be people choosing between medicine, food, and rent. This is going to be an existential issue for many seniors. And yet we have 2 folks, leading presidential candidates, who want to lead our nation, who are not taking leadership on the issue that is most important for many seniors. 2/5 of boomers, the only retirement plan they have is Social Security. And if they do nothing, it's cut by 24%. That should be the issue they're talking about.
Yeah, paying into a program, will it be there when you need it? I want to talk to you about Ukraine while I have you here, Senator. The U.S. has pledged about $40 billion to Ukraine since the invasion by Russia more than a year ago. You've been supportive of Ukraine, but have voted against some of these packages. Why is that?
Well, typically I'm for them. If there's a vote that I've voted against, it's because I wanted more oversight. The American taxpayer has been, okay, we will help them, but we want to make sure the money is spent wisely. I'm with that. But if you look at my vote consistently, I've been able to vote for that package when these safeguards have been put in. and I do support it. Russia has been coming after the United States for about 2 decades now, and they're not going to stop. And if they had gone easily into Ukraine, they would have continued up into countries like Poland. At least that's what the Poles think. And so I think it's important. Frankly, there's no American who's dying unless they've gone over there as a volunteer. And the Ukrainians are putting up an incredible fight, and it's degrading the Russians' ability to attack other nations.
Do you think other countries should shoulder some more of the financial burden like the U.S. is in supporting Ukraine?
Yes, and I'm told, and was told this past week, that the Europeans are greatly stepping up their game, greatly. And the Germans, for the first time in decades, are now committing 2% of their GDP to defense, and a lot of that is being transferred to the Ukrainians, and they'll go north of 2%. So we're seeing that ramp up. As well, the EU is putting dollars towards the humanitarian relief and the sustainment of the economy of the Ukrainians. So we're seeing that effort. We were first, others are coming along.
Ukraine and the situation with Russia's invasion has been described as a war of attrition. Does Ukraine have your support for as long as it takes, if it takes years?
Well, you hate to have an open-ended commitment without knowing actually how it's going to transpire. If there's a chance for a peace settlement, of course we want peace. On the other hand, do I think Putin is interested in peace at this point? Absolutely not. And do I think that if the Ukrainians rested, that the Russians would come right back? Absolutely. And are the Russians doing incredibly bad things around the world? Yes. So right now, the Ukrainians absolutely have my support.
Sunday is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to you. What does it mean to you, fatherhood?
Oh my gosh, it's such a privilege. You know, I was born in Highland Park, Illinois, and my
welcome home.
Welcome home. And my dad was so committed, he frankly didn't have a good job up here, and heard he could move to Louisiana and get a better job. And so he was so committed to our family that he packed us all up and we went down and he hit his traction. You know, having a father in a home, providing for family, is both a privilege, a responsibility, but essential for our society. And I can say that because of my dad and my mom, I've been able to achieve my dreams. You spoke about dreams. I think it's more likely the parents who help the child achieve that dream than a particular university. And I can say that on my own behalf.
Senator Bill Cassidy, I thank you for your time. I appreciate the conversation. Safe travels back to Kentucky. All right, still ahead, multiple U.S. government agencies under attack from Russian cyber criminals. Right now, the